Take a moment, wherever you are, to breathe in the quiet truth that is so easily overlooked in an age of noise and spectacle. You do not need to wait for some grand revolution to transform your life. You do not need to stand atop some distant mountain to claim your place among those who have pursued greatness and found it. The path to a life of excellence, discipline, and integrity is not paved with rare moments of heroic effort. It is built, brick by brick, with the smallest actions you choose when no one is watching. Consider this for a moment. What if your most ordinary moments, your tiniest decisions, your simplest rituals, carry within the potential to shape your destiny? What if the quiet act of showing up, of doing the next small thing well, is the very essence of becoming the person you aspire to be? This is not a romantic notion or a hopeful metaphor. It is a profound psychological and philosophical truth. The smallest wins, repeated over time, define the architecture of a big life. In this exploration, you and I will journey into the hidden power of tiny habits. We will look beyond the allure of sudden change and discover how consistency in small things becomes a foundation of greatness itself. Together, we will examine how your mind encodes repeated behavior, how your sense of identity is shaped by the rituals you enact, and how the discipline of microaction can become the most reliable force of transformation you will ever know. There is a quiet dignity in the life lived with intention, a sense of purpose that comes not from occasional bursts of effort, but from the humble repetition of what matters most. This is the story of small wins, the story of how one disciplined choice, repeated until it becomes part of who you are, can awaken the extraordinary within you. So, as you listen, I invite you to consider this question. What small action could you begin today that, over time, would make your life unrecognizably better? Because the life you dream of does not arrive in a single thunderclap of change. It emerges quietly and inexorably from the power of your smallest habits. Welcome to Small Wins, Big Life. This is your invitation to become one small step at a time. In every era, thinkers have wrestled with a single question: what makes a life noble, worthy, and whole? Some have argued that greatness is measured by vast accomplishments, feats so large they seem beyond the reach of ordinary effort. Others have insisted that a life of purpose is not a matter of scale, but of substance, the character we express in the smallest, most private decisions. Look deeper, and you will discover a universal truth that echoes across philosophy and psychology alike. Excellence is never a singular act. It is a habit, a pattern woven through countless moments. Reflect on this carefully. You are never merely performing a task. You are always becoming. Every choice you make is a declaration of who you are willing to be. This is why small wins matter so profoundly. They are not trivial. They are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of identity. Think of the mind as fertile ground. Each small action you plant is a seed. At first, it seems inconsequential, nearly invisible. But over time, repetition waters the seed. Consistency warms the soil, and intention protects it from the weeds of distraction and complacency. Eventually, that seed takes root. It grows into something stronger than mere willpower. It becomes part of the landscape of your life, an enduring expression of who you are. The temptation in a world obsessed with dramatic transformation is to undervalue the ordinary. But consider this: no cathedral was built in a single day. No work of art emerged fully formed in a single stroke of genius. No character worthy of admiration was forged in the glow of a single moment. Greatness is accumulated. It is a sum of unremarkable acts performed with remarkable consistency. This is a philosophical foundation of tiny habits, that there is no chasm between your aspirations and your daily actions. That small wins are not preparation for something greater. They are the substance of a great life. That discipline is not an event, but a manner of living, a form of devotion to what you value most. When you begin to see your smallest behaviors through this lens, you awaken to a deeper understanding. Every day offers you a choice, a chance to align what you say you care about with what you actually do. And here lies the quiet miracle. The tiniest act of integrity, performed repeatedly, outweighs 1,000 intentions never lived. So consider the possibility that your life is not waiting to begin when circumstances improve, or when you finally feel ready, or when you make some grand declaration. Your life is happening now. In every small choice, every brief effort, every modest step, in those unassuming moments, you hold the power to shape yourself into someone whose habits and identity are indistinguishable. This is the wisdom the philosophers have always whispered. Excellence is simply ordinary action done extraordinarily well. And when you truly understand this, you will never again dismiss the power of a single, small win. If philosophy gives us the why, psychology reveals the how. To build a life defined by disciplined excellence, you must first understand how your mind is wired to create and protect habits. The human brain is a marvel of efficiency. It seeks patterns. It automates repeated behaviors to conserve energy, freeing you to focus on novelty and complexity. This is why, once a habit is formed, it requires so little conscious effort to continue. But beneath this apparent simplicity lies a powerful sequence that governs every habit you have ever formed. Psychologists often describe it as a loop composed of 4 elements. Cue. The cue is the signal, a prompt in your environment or mind that triggers a desire to act. It could be a time of day, an emotional state, or a subtle sensory reminder. Craving. The craving is the anticipation, a feeling that arises when your brain associates the cue with a specific reward. It is this emotional pull that makes a habit compelling. Response. The response is the behavior itself, the action you take in answer to the craving. Reward. The reward is the outcome your brain seeks. Satisfaction. Relief. Pleasure. The reward is what reinforces the habit loop, training your mind to repeat the cycle in the future. Consider how this loop operates invisibly, guiding your life in countless ways. Each time you perform an action, your brain records a trace, an imprint that makes it easier to do again. Over time, this trace becomes a groove. And the deeper the groove, the less conscious effort you expend to follow it. This is why tiny habits matter. Their simplicity reduces friction. They can be repeated effortlessly, which makes it more likely they will be encoded in your nervous system. When you attempt grand, sweeping changes, you often encounter resistance. The mind perceives them as threats to its equilibrium. But when you introduce a small behavior, so modest it seems almost trivial, you bypass the mind's defenses. You are, in effect, gently guiding your brain into a new rhythm without triggering alarm. This is not a weakness. It is the brilliance of human psychology. Your brain is designed to reward incremental progress, not sporadic intensity. There is a quiet power in understanding this. You realize that success does not depend on heroic willpower or sudden inspiration. It depends on crafting small actions so easy, so frictionless, that you cannot help but repeat them. And in that repetition, you begin to transform. This is how habits become identity. Each time you choose to act in alignment with your values, you send a signal to yourself. This is who I am. Not occasionally, not when you feel inspired, but daily. Over time, these small signals converge into certainty. Your identity becomes inseparable from your behavior. And so the psychology of tiny habits is not merely a method for personal improvement. It is a philosophy of becoming. It teaches us that the life you long for is built not on the occasional triumph of discipline, but on the steady, quiet accumulation of small wins. As you learn to respect this process, to trust in the power of repetition, you gain access to one of the most potent forces in human life, the ability to turn deliberate action into effortless character. Consider for a moment what it means to live with excellence, not merely to succeed in isolated endeavors, but to embody a standard that touches every corner of your life. Excellence is often mistaken for an outcome, some final achievement that will prove your worth once and for all. But when you look closer, you discover it is nothing of the sort. Excellence is a structure, an architecture built patiently from countless decisions made well. Think of it as the gradual construction of an edifice. Each small habit you cultivate is a brick. Each repetition, a layer of mortar binding the structure together. And though a single brick seems inconsequential, it is indispensable to the integrity of the whole. This is a discipline of tiny improvements, a philosophy that stands in stark contrast to the illusion of instant mastery. Many grow impatient when results do not arrive quickly. They abandon the practice in search of shortcuts. But those who understand the architecture of excellence know this. Sustained progress is always incremental. There is a principle at the heart of this architecture. Small improvements, applied consistently, create momentum. Momentum generates confidence. And confidence sustains commitment when the initial spark of motivation inevitably fades. This principle has a name in the philosophy of continuous growth. Kaizen. Kaizen is the practice of constant, incremental improvement. It teaches that transformation is not an event, but an endless process. No matter how refined your skills become, there's always a smaller action to master, a subtle detail to perfect, a minor refinement to incorporate. And here's the paradox. By embracing the humility of small steps, you become capable of extraordinary change. Those who cling to perfectionism, who refuse to act until everything is certain, often accomplish little. Those who commit to modest improvements, day after day, gradually surpass every expectation. This is why excellence must be built upon a foundation of routine, a structured practice that honors the power of repetition over the drama of occasional effort. Ask yourself, what rituals will you perform not once, but 1,000 times? What small behaviors will you refine until they become second nature? What discipline will you practice when no one applauds your effort? Because in the end, excellence is not about what you occasionally attempt. It is about what you consistently embody. And this is why tiny habits hold such transformative power. They allow you to channel your ideals into practical form. They become the framework that supports your growth, even in seasons of doubt or fatigue. When you understand this architecture, you stop waiting for inspiration to lift you into action. You stop hoping that some sudden burst of clarity will change everything overnight. Instead, you begin to trust the humble work of laying one brick after another. And over time, you will look back and see that the life you once imagined as distant and unattainable has become the very foundation beneath your feet. This is the architecture of excellence, a life built on small wins, practiced daily, perfected patiently. There's a quiet tension that lives in all of us. It is a space between what we say we value and what we actually do. This tension is not merely inconvenient. It is a source of much of our dissatisfaction and frustration. When your daily actions stand apart from your deepest principles, you feel divided within yourself. You sense an invisible fracture running through your identity. Integrity is the healing of that fracture. It is a condition in which your behavior and your values are aligned so closely that they become indistinguishable. And here is where the power of tiny habits becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a form of moral practice. Small, disciplined actions are how you embody your ideals in the simplest moments of your life. Consider this carefully. It is easy to proclaim your aspirations, to speak of discipline, excellence, and virtue in the abstract. But every time you perform even the smallest action in accordance with your highest standards, you affirm a deeper truth about who you are. Over time, these affirmations accumulate. Each repetition is a signal you send to yourself. I am a person who honors my word. I am a person who lives with purpose. I am a person who does not abandon my values when comfort beckons. This is the essence of integrity. It is not a rare virtue reserved for dramatic moments of sacrifice. It is a habit practiced in the privacy of your ordinary routines. Psychology teaches us that our sense of self-respect is built upon this foundation. When your actions contradict your values, you erode trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your own promises. You question whether you are capable of lasting change. But when your behavior aligns, when you keep even the smallest commitments, self-respect grows. You no longer need to rely on external validation because you know, in the quiet of your own mind, that you are living in truth. This is why tiny habits are so powerful. They offer you daily opportunities to prove your integrity to yourself, to replace self-deception with self-honesty. Consider the dignity of this practice. It requires no audience, no recognition, no applause, just a quiet conviction that who you are in private is the truest measure of your character. If you are willing to honor the smallest commitments, you will discover something extraordinary. Discipline becomes not a burden, but a form of self-respect. Excellence becomes not a performance, but a natural expression of who you are. And success, rather than an external reward, becomes the inevitable outcome of living with integrity. So reflect on this. What values matter most to you? What small actions, repeated daily, would honor those values? What tiny habits could you begin practicing today that would close the gap between your ideals and your reality? Remember, integrity is not an accident. It is the outcome of countless small decisions made with intention. When you align your actions with your values, you create a life of coherence, a life in which your character is not a promise but a lived reality. This is the integrity of habit, the quiet, unshakable power of becoming what you believe. So far, we have explored why small wins matter, philosophically, psychologically, and morally. But understanding alone is never enough. Transformation requires a structure you can put into practice. Here, we will lay out a simple, practical framework you can use to design, implement, and sustain tiny habits that move you steadily toward the life you envision. Consider this framework as 4 pillars, each essential to building habits that endure. 1. Clarity. Define the smallest possible action. Many ambitions fail not because of lack of effort, but because they are too vague. A goal like be more disciplined or improve my health offers no clear instruction to your brain. The first step is to translate aspiration into a single, concrete action that is so small it feels almost too easy to do. Instead of read more, decide read 1 page each night before bed. Instead of get stronger, commit to perform 1 push-up each morning. Instead of be organized, define put away 1 item after I use it. When you design a habit this small, you lower the barrier to action. You eliminate negotiation and hesitation. You make success nearly inevitable. Clarity is what transforms good intentions into specific behavior. 2. Consistency. Anchor the habit to an existing routine. Your brain loves patterns. To strengthen a new habit, attach it to something you already do every day. This anchor becomes a cue that signals your mind to begin behavior. Consider, after I make my morning coffee, I will write down 1 intention for the day. After I brush my teeth, I will stretch for 30 seconds. After I sit down at my desk, I will take 3 calming breaths. By pairing your habit with an established routine, you create a dependable prompt. Repetition over time will make this sequence automatic. Consistency is what allows a habit to take root. 3. Alignment. Ensure your habit reflects your values. Even the simplest action gains power when it serves a higher purpose. Before you commit to any new habit, ask yourself, does this behavior reflect who I wish to become? If the answer is yes, your motivation will deepen. You will feel a sense of integrity each time you perform it. Alignment is what transforms a habit from a chore into an act of self-respect. 4. Reinforcement. Celebrate the completion. Your brain is wired to repeat behaviors that feel rewarding. Each time you finish your small habit, offer yourself a moment of positive reinforcement. This can be as simple as a silent acknowledgement. I did what I said I would do. A mental image of your long-term vision. A brief feeling of pride in honoring your commitment. Never underestimate the power of this immediate satisfaction. It teaches your mind that this behavior is worth repeating. Reinforcement is what locks in the pattern. To illustrate how these 4 pillars work in concert, imagine this process. You define the smallest possible action. You anchor it to a routine you already perform. You connect it to your deepest values. You celebrate each repetition, no matter how small. With each cycle, you create a loop, cue, action, reward. Over days and weeks, the behavior shifts from a deliberate effort into an effortless reflex. This is how tiny habits grow. They begin as deliberate choices, take root as patterns, and flourish into identity. Guidelines to remember. Start small. When in doubt, make your habit even smaller. Success fuels confidence. Be patient. True change is measured in seasons, not days. Track your progress. Even a simple log can reinforce your commitment. Forgive lapses. Missing a repetition is not failure. The only failure is to quit altogether. Return immediately. The sooner you resume, the stronger the habit becomes. This framework is not complicated. Its power lies in its simplicity and consistency. If you honor this process, you'll find that the life you once believed required monumental effort is built instead by small wins. Practice patiently, day after day. This is how greatness becomes inevitable. Even with clarity, alignment, and a sound framework, you will inevitably encounter resistance. Resistance is the invisible force that rises each time you try to change. It manifests as hesitation, excuses, fatigue, or subtle self-sabotage. Understand this. Resistance is not proof that you are weak or incapable. It is a natural byproduct of your brain's instinct to preserve what is familiar. Psychology teaches us that all habits, even harmful ones, serve a purpose. They provide a sense of certainty. Certainty, even a mediocrity, feels safer to your nervous system than the unknown. This is why change feels uncomfortable. You are not simply altering behavior. You are confronting your brain's impulse to protect you from uncertainty. And so, if you wish to rise above this impulse, you must learn to meet resistance without judgment. Resistance is not your enemy. It is a signal that you are moving beyond your old limitations. Here are 4 strategies to overcome it with wisdom and composure. 1. Normalize discomfort. When you expect change to feel effortless, you set yourself up for disappointment. Growth is inherently uncomfortable. Each time you feel resistance, remind yourself, this discomfort is evidence that I am evolving. Reframing discomfort as a positive sign removes much of its power. Rather than seeing it as a barrier, you can treat it as confirmation you are on the right path. 2. Reduce the scope, maintain the streak. When motivation wanes, the temptation is to abandon your habit entirely. Instead, make the behavior even smaller. Reduce the scope to the bare minimum you can perform without fail. If you plan to write a page, write a sentence. If you plan to exercise for 20 minutes, do 1 minute. If you plan to meditate for 10 minutes, take 3 deep breaths. This practice preserves your streak and reinforces your identity as someone who shows up consistently, regardless of circumstances. Consistency builds trust in yourself, especially on the days you feel least inclined to act. 3. Observe without criticism. Self-sabotage often begins with judgment. You miss a day, then tell yourself a familiar story. I'm undisciplined. I'm never going to change. This narrative does far more damage than the missed action itself. Instead, practice neutral observation. I see that I missed a day. I see the impulse to criticize myself. I will simply begin again. By refusing to indulge in self-condemnation, you free your energy to return to the practice. 4. Reconnect with your deeper purpose. When resistance feels overwhelming, pause and ask, why does this matter to me? Recall the values you are honoring. Visualize the person you are becoming. Purpose is the antidote to inertia. When you feel connected to something larger than momentary comfort, your resolve strengthens. Resistance thrives in isolation. It loses its grip when you remember your highest vision. Understand that the presence of resistance is not proof you are failing. It is proof that you are alive, that you are daring to build a life beyond your previous limitations. Each time you face resistance with patience and courage, you grow stronger. Each time you act in spite of it, you reinforce the truth that you are more powerful than your impulses. This is how discipline is forged, not in the absence of struggle, but in the decision to continue despite it. Overcoming resistance is not a single act. It is a practice, a habit unto itself. There is a universal law that governs all lasting progress. This law is subtle, almost invisible in the beginning, but over months and years, it becomes the most powerful force in your life. It is the law of compounding. Most people associate compounding with wealth, the idea that small investments grow exponentially when left to accumulate. But compounding applies to every aspect of your development, your habits, your character, your confidence, your mastery. Each small action you repeat is like planting a seed. At first, there is little visible growth. This is why many abandon their practice too soon. They cannot see that beneath the surface, roots are taking hold. The early phase of compounding is quiet. It feels insignificant. This is the moment where most give up, convinced their efforts are in vain. But if you have the courage to persist, if you continue to nurture your habits patiently, something remarkable happens. The small wins begin to build upon each other. Each repetition reinforces the next. What once required conscious effort begins to unfold automatically. Psychology describes this process as automaticity, the point at which behavior becomes so ingrained that it demands minimal conscious thought. Once your habits cross this threshold, they no longer rely on motivation. They become self-sustaining. And over time, the compounding effect becomes unmistakable. A single minute of daily reflection becomes a depth of self-awareness that guides every decision. A modest act of discipline becomes a foundation for greater challenges you once thought impossible. A commitment to integrity in small things becomes a reputation for trustworthiness that opens every door. Consider this simple truth. Excellence is never the result of a single act. It is the consequence of thousands of tiny efforts, compounding quietly over time. In the early days of a new habit, progress feels linear. Effort equals results out. But in reality, the curve is not straight, it is exponential. For weeks or months, you may see little return. But if you stay the course, the curve begins to rise. Each small win increases your capacity for the next. What once seemed difficult becomes effortless. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable. This is why patience is essential. Most people underestimate the time it takes for compounding to reveal itself. But the law of compounding is impartial. It rewards those who remain faithful to small, consistent action. The compounding effect does more than produce visible achievements. It transforms who you are. Each repetition not only strengthens your skill, but reshapes your self-concept. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who wishes to improve, but as someone who does improve. This shift in identity is the most profound reward of all. It becomes a permanent resource you can draw upon when faced with future challenges. Keys to harnessing the compounding effect. Commit to the timeline. Understand that your results will lag behind your efforts. Trust the process long enough to see the curve begin to rise. Measure backwards. Instead of comparing yourself to where you wish to be, compare yourself to where you began. This perspective reveals the true magnitude of your growth. Protect your streak. Compounding rewards consistency. Even a single act performed regularly can transform your life when sustained over time. Celebrate milestones. Marking progress reinforces your motivation and reminds you that every effort counts. At every stage, you will have the opportunity to choose. Will you judge your small efforts as insignificant? Or will you trust in their unseen power? Will you abandon the practice because results are delayed? Or will you persevere until compounding makes success inevitable? Remember, the life you desire is not built by occasional grand gestures. It is created by the quiet compounding of small wins, practiced with integrity and patience. This is the secret of all enduring achievement. This is how tiny habits transform into a big life. In the end, all your habits and efforts lead to a single question. What does it mean to live a big life? It is tempting to accept inherited definitions of success, wealth, recognition, status. But if you do not examine these assumptions, you may find yourself striving tirelessly for a life that feels hollow once attained. A truly big life is not measured by how impressive it appears to others. It is measured by how aligned it feels within you. It is the experience of knowing that your days are shaped by your own values, not by external pressures. That your time and energy are invested in pursuits you find meaningful. Psychology reminds us that well-being arises from a sense of autonomy, the freedom to choose your path, and a sense of competence, the confidence that you can walk it. Tiny habits serve both these purposes. They offer you a practical way to design a life that feels authentically yours, one action at a time. The foundation, self-defined success. To live a big life, you must first decide what matters most to you. Ask yourself, what values are non-negotiable in the way I live and work? What qualities do I wish to cultivate? Discipline, compassion, curiosity, integrity? How do I define success, regardless of others' opinions? Your answers will become the compass that guides every small action. Remember, when your habits are aligned with your own definition of success, you are liberated from the anxiety of comparison. You are no longer driven by the need to prove your worth. Instead, you build confidence in the quiet satisfaction of living true to yourself. The practice, integrity in the ordinary. A big life is not a life of constant excitement or dramatic milestones. It is a life where the ordinary moments are infused with purpose, where each day, however simple, becomes an opportunity to practice your values. When you show up consistently, when you honor small commitments, you experience a kind of dignity that external rewards cannot replace. This is a paradox of mastery. The more you focus on the daily practice, the more your life expands. Over time, the cumulative effect of tiny, purpose-driven actions create achievements that look extraordinary from the outside, but feel natural from the inside. The patience, becoming overachieving. In a culture obsessed with speed, it is easy to forget that the deepest transformations happen slowly. A big life is not simply about achieving goals as quickly as possible. It is about becoming the kind of person who naturally expresses the qualities you admire. This becoming unfolds gradually. It requires patience. It requires a humility to allow your life to evolve at its own pace. When you measure your days not by what you have accomplished, but by whether you have honored your principles, you cultivate a quiet confidence that no setback can erase. The freedom, choosing again and again. Finally, remember this. No matter where you stand today, you have the freedom to choose again. If you have strayed from your values, you can return. If you have abandoned your habits, you can begin anew. If you have accepted definitions of success that no longer resonate, you can redefine them. Each small choice is a chance to reclaim your integrity, to honor your purpose, to build a life that feels expansive and true. This freedom is your birthright. It is available in every moment, to every person willing to claim it. To live a big life does not require grand circumstances. It requires the courage to define success on your own terms, and the discipline to pursue it through small, consistent action. This is the art of tiny habits. Not merely a strategy for productivity, but a path to a life that is rich, meaningful, and fully your own. As we come to the end of this exploration, take a moment to pause and breathe. Consider all we have uncovered together, that the smallest actions can reshape the trajectory of your life, that resistance and doubt are not signs of weakness, but invitations to grow stronger, that the compounding effect rewards patience far more than intensity, that a life of greatness and integrity is built not by grand gestures, but by quiet, repeated acts of intention. These are not just ideas to admire. They are principles to be lived. Every day is an opportunity to practice them. I invite you, right here, right now, not to merely think about these insights, but to act upon them. Ask yourself, what is the smallest habit I can begin today that reflects who I wish to become? How can I make this habit so clear and so small that I cannot fail to start? How will I anchor it to my existing routine, reinforce it with celebration, and protect it with patience? You do not need to overhaul your life overnight. You do not need to wait for the perfect plan, the perfect motivation, or the perfect moment. You simply need to begin. A simple starting point. Before this day ends, choose one tiny habit, just one. Write it down. Make it as specific and effortless as possible. Then perform it once. In that single act, you're no longer a passive observer of your own life. You become an active participant in its creation. This is how you cross the threshold between wishing and becoming. A life of integrity and excellence. You are capable of more than fleeting resolutions. You are capable of building a life founded on discipline, purpose, and authenticity. One small win at a time. When you practice this consistently, you will find that success is not a destination, but a way of being. Each day becomes a quiet demonstration of your commitment to excellence and integrity. Each day becomes an opportunity to honor your deepest values. Let this be the truth you carry with you. There is no action so small that it is beneath your dignity. There is no habit so modest that it cannot transform you. There is no day so ordinary that it cannot move you closer to the life you desire. What matters is that you begin and that you begin again as often as necessary. As you step away from this episode, I challenge you to do 3 things. Define your first tiny habit today. Commit to practicing it for the next 7 days without fail. Reflect at the end of the week on what you learn about yourself. You will discover that each repetition plants a seed of confidence and self-respect. And in time, you will look back and see that these small wins did not merely improve your habits. They reveal the person you were capable of becoming all along. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for caring enough about your growth to listen, to reflect, and to act. If you found value in this episode, consider subscribing to this channel. Share it with someone you believe is ready to build a life of discipline and purpose. Your support allows this community to grow, and your engagement inspires more people to begin their own journey of transformation. Until next time, remember, a big life is built by small wins. Practice patiently, consistently, and with unwavering integrity. Begin today.